Welcome to BunniPhish Crafts. I'm your host Heather, known as BunniPhish on Ravelry, Instagram, and YouTube. Today is Tuesday, the 4th of September, 2018, and this is episode 21. Grab some sticks and string and come sit with me. So you guys, isn't this place beautiful? This is my favorite, not my bed spot. We are at George Park, which is a park near me. I've recorded a little bit in the past, and yeah, it's the first day of school. So you get a lot of nature sounds and not a lot of kid sounds today. I hope that's okay with you because I super love it out here. And yeah, this particular space that I'm sitting on is my favorite spot and the place that I always take myself when I go to the park without children. I haven't seen you in 2 weeks because life has been busy and crazy, and good ways though. We went camping last week, which was so fun and so beautiful. We went to Wilderness State Park, which is about here in the mitten. If you're from, Michigan, this is how we tell where we are. So we went up here. I live about here. So it was a decent drive, about 4.5, 5 hours away. Longer because we had to stop for the bathroom a few times. But yeah, so it was so beautiful. We were on a lake. Our campsite was right on a lake, and then we went up for an overnight in the Upper Peninsula and went to Tequamanon Falls, which is gorgeous. We're going to go back. I went with my best friend, and she brought a friend, and then my 2 kids, and we are planning to go back. This was our second year going to that campsite, and it's just so beautiful, to the Wilderness State Park. And so this park is like 15-20 minutes from Mackinac, so we went to Mackinac twice. There's this delicious Mackinac bakery, has great pastries and soups, and it's amazing. If you're in Mackinac, go there. Anyway, let's talk about some knitting, and not just about how awesome my week has been and how excited I am that it's the first day of school. Let me talk about that for a second. So Mara got up and she was super excited. The first thing she said was, "First day of school!" Just like that, which is her excited voice. Can you hear the guy driving the service vehicle over there? Sorry if you can, but it is what it is. Anyway, so she's super excited, but Gabriel is refusing to enjoy the experience of a first day at school. He was like, "I don't like anybody, nobody's gonna like me, I'm not gonna have any friends, his friend from last year is in his class." So he just went with this mentality that he's gonna have a horrible day. So that's really frustrating because I want him to like school and have a good day. But I can't force him to change his attitude, only he can do that. That's frustrating though. So anyway, there is a knit along going on in the podcast group. It is the Deja Vu knit along, and I have not yet posted anything over there. The chatter thread and the FO thread are open, and I know there's been a little bit of chatter. After I record, I have to go to the library and take care of a few things, so I'll be checking in on the Ravelry group then. It's part of my errands that I am not running until places open because nothing's open yet except the grocery store, and I don't want to go grocery shopping quite yet. I'll do that later today. So that's why we're at the park. Anyway, the Deja Vu along, that is going on. It ends October 31st, and the idea is to just make a pattern that you've already made before. So my something that I've already made before is socks on a plane. And I am sample knitting, well, I sample knit, I guess I'm not sample knitting anymore. I sample knit these socks for Shelby of the Bayou City Yarn Company, and the colorway for the main body is Dirty Beach, which was so apropos because I knit them mostly on the beach, and it wasn't very dirty. There was a little bit of human stuff, like bottle caps and stuff, which me and my kids picked up while we were there, because leave no trace, dude. You're camping. Don't be a jerk. Anyway, so this colorway is Dirty Beach, which I think is so beautiful. It's just gorgeous speckles. And then the toe heel cuff color is Cheddar. So Socks on a Plane is a free pattern by Laura Linneman, and it has like a normal standard toe, but then for the heel it has a Flegel heel, and I actually really enjoy the fit of a Flegel heel a lot, but I don't do it. I don't know why I don't do it. Excuse me. Probably because it is a gusset heel, and I've been using the Fish Lips Kiss heel a lot because you don't have to worry about a gusset. And the Fish Lips Kiss heel fits me pretty well, but so does a gusset and heel flap or a Flegel heel. So it was nice to do something a little different for these socks. So they're too big for my sock blockers, because my sock blockers I got in a swap package, and they're actually too small for me, these sock blockers. See? Too small. Oh, there's my foot. So it's fine, but I do like to have them for, you know, showing off that cable pattern. It's a really easy pattern, 6 round repeat. The cable panel is only 10 stitches, and then you have all of that stockinette the rest of the time. Super simple. It was really great travel knitting. Here's the second one. They are mirrored, so the cable goes down one side on one foot, one side the other foot. I worked them in tandem on 9-inch circulars because I wanted them to be as travel knittingable, that's good English, as possible. So I started the toes on a 2 at a time circular needle, and then to put them on my 9-inch circs. I did the heel, I did all the gusset stitches on my 9-inch circular. I did everything after the toe on a 9-inch circular. So yeah, and you continue the cable all the way up, which is a really pretty detail. If you didn't want to, though, you could just do the ribbing. It's a 2x2 ribbing for the cuff, and you could just do the ribbing at the top instead of the cable, and you wouldn't have to mess with the pattern too much, because the cable is a 6-stitch cable panel, so you could just throw a purl, 2 purl stitches in between the two sets of knit stitches, and that would work fine. This yarn was super lovely to work with, so nice. I had to rip out on this sock, I think, so I had a moment. Yeah, it was on this sock. So I was knitting the cable panel, and it's really super easy, but there's 2 sizes in the pattern, and I made the bigger size. But when I put in the second cable panel, I put it into the smaller size stitch count, so my panel was 4 stitches too close to the middle. And I didn't realize it until I was almost to the heel. I was like, do I really want to rip back like 60? I think I was at the gusset, so it was about 60 rounds at that point. No, I did not want to rip that back. So I dropped down 60 rows of that cable and, you know, the stitches I needed on either side. So probably less than 20 stitches down 60 rows, and just worked it all the way back up. And it looks fine. I think it's fine. I don't think you can tell. I think it looks beautiful. So yeah. And again, it was a really simple cable, and I wasn't really worried about, you know, messing it up. I just got a raindrop on my head. It rained last night, which is why it's so foggy, but also so beautiful. So raindrops might fall. You might see that happen. Anyway, yeah, so I don't like ripping out if I don't have to. Obviously this was a sample sock, so if I dropped down and it looked bad, I would have ripped back those 60 rounds, but it doesn't. You can't even tell. If I hadn't told you, you wouldn't notice. So yes, I think that working it back up worked really, really well. Okay, so that's my first work in progress. My first finished object. I only have finished objects because I finished my last active work in progress last night, and I haven't started anything yet. My plan is to start something tonight before bed, but until then, in between things, I have just some mitered squares that I can work on. Oh, rude. Raindrop just fell on my socks. So I also finished, before camping, the Ridgeback socks that I was working on. So here is where I was on this sock, and here is where I was on the second sock last time you saw it. So yes, I put in a lot of work on these, and that's a nice little visual of what the back of these socks look like. So the yarn that I used for these is some Premier Serenity sock yarn that I dyed with Kool-Aid for my nephew for Christmas, and the black is also Premier Serenity sock, but that's just black. And this is my pattern, Ridgeback, which I love and I think is super great. So I worked these in tandem on 9-inch circulars, much the same way that I worked the sample socks. Because I worked them that way because I dyed a 50-gram skein with my nephew, but then I used that skein in modular blankets before I put it into the socks. So so yeah, I didn't want to run out of yarn on one sock and then have the other sock look completely weird. And I did run out of yarn after the first sock, but I'll tell you about that in a second. So this is a fun little mistake I made. Can you see that right there? I don't know if you can or not. The Ridgeback sock is worked in garter stitch on the back, and right when I finished the heel, I did a purl back row instead of a knit row. So I did that on the first sock, and I noticed it probably, I don't know, 10 rows above. And I was like, oh, do I want to rip back the 10 rows just to fix it? And I was like, nope, you know what? Design feature. So I just made sure to do the same thing on the second sock in about the same place. I don't even think my nephew's gonna notice, so whatever. What else about these socks? Okay, so I worked them in tandem, kind of. I worked to the heel on the first one, and then I had the toes done, and then I worked up to the heel on the second one because I knew I was going to have enough yarn for that, and that wasn't a problem. And then these expanding and contracting ridge areas, that's what I called in the pattern, I worked, 2 on one sock and then 2 on the other, and back and forth. Or yeah, that's how I worked it. So I finished the first sock, and I decided to bind off in the black because I didn't want to run out of yarn, and the red was looking pretty small. I thought it would be close, but I just decided to bind off in black. That way, if I had to do something with black on the second sock, it wouldn't be quite so noticeable. So I used a sewn bind off, which is my preferred bind off for 1x1 rib. I did a 1x1 twisted rib on this, which is the ribbing called for in the cuff down version of the pattern. So that's why I went with it. Also, I just think it looks really nice. I go through phases with which ribbing I like. starting to drizzle a little. That's okay. I don't mind. So sewn bind off, it's basically when you get to the last row, or the last round of ribbing, you knit onto one needle. You do it with a 1x1 ribbing. You knit onto one needle, purl onto another, all the way around, and then you Kitchener around. So I just think it looks really nice. It's a very stretchy bind off, but it doesn't flare. Well, now it's gonna flare because I just messed with it, but look, there we go. That doesn't flare. It looks nice. And like I was saying, I think last episode, I really don't mind Kitchenering, so it's a good fit for me. So you can see it's just the bind off on this that's black. Not if I put it against my black shirt, you can't. On this one, I ran out of the red yarn, and I was 2 rounds shy of the bind off. So I had options. One option would be finish it 2 rounds short. Would my nephew have noticed? Probably not. And you know, it would have been 2 rounds. Nobody would have noticed except I would have known. So I didn't want to do that. I could have ripped out the bind off on the first sock and pulled out the yarn and either knit, like pulled out 1 round on here, knit 1 round on here, and then bound off, or just pulled out 2 rounds on here and bound them both off. But what I decided to do was embrace the running out of yarn. I did the last 2 rounds in black and then did the sewn bind off. And I think that they are close enough. My nephew might notice, he might not. I don't know, he's a 13-year-old boy, so who knows. But I don't mind it, and I think it looks just fine. So I will wash these and get them put away for Christmas. And then the last finished object I have are my mini skein socks. So I'm hoping to type these up today mostly, and I know there was some interest in how I did them, so I will hopefully be contacting a few people today also about test knitting, but don't hold me to that because I have a to-do list that is literally a notebook sheet long. So what's that, like 30 items on my to-do list, because apparently I think I'm Wonder Woman and not having children is going to let me accomplish everything in the whole world. Podcasting is actually on tomorrow's to-do list, so I'm just messing with the whole system. Whatever. So yes, here's the inside of the sock. I'm actually, when I am finished recording, I'm going to finish weaving in these ends. I wove in the ends on the other 2 pairs of socks and this sock last night, but then once it got to be about midnight, or maybe it was midnight 30, I was like, okay, I'm ready for bed. So this is where I was on both socks last time you saw them. So I finished them, and they fit great, which I hope they would since I knit them for myself. Some things about the yarn: it is from Yarn Geek Fibers. It is Cordale base. It's got Cordale and nylon. I don't have a tag, so I can't tell you about that specifically. I've told you about the first 3 colors, the colorway names, on a different podcast. I'm just going to show you it inside out. That's good enough. So I'm going to show you the other 4 colors. So there's this one right here. This greenish color is Harriet Quimby. We'll talk about this later, I guess. Who was an aviator and the first woman to gain pilot status in the US. And then this one is Boxcar Gallery, which I looked up, and the only information I could find about it was that it is an art gallery in Denver. If that's not right, correct me down below. And then this green right here is Vera Rubin, who was an astronomer and pioneered works on galaxy rotation rates. That sounds awesome and crazy in a good way. And then this is Grace Hooper, who was a computer scientist and a naval rear admiral. So those are the colorways in that. So a little bit about this sock. I did my normal wider toe because my feet are wide. I did a Fish Lips Kiss heel, which will be written into the pattern as a short row heel. I did 1x1 ribbing on the cuff. So I did the striping sequence all the way up the front of the foot. I just threw in the heel where it fit because I didn't want to deal with it. I did kind of think that it would be cool to do a afterthought heel with a striping sequence, but I don't know, I got lazy and just threw in this heel. Also, I threw in this heel and got lazy because the length that I needed it actually split a stripe perfectly. So I was like, well, that'll look nice enough. I used the same yarn for the toe, heel, and then in the cuff I striped this gray yarn, which I have written down here because I did bring my notebook. I just didn't write show notes. This gray yarn, what colorway is this? How far back did I write about this? Who knows? Macy Jemison is that colorway. So I used that for the toe and heel, and then striped it in the cuff because I ended up with only this much of that 60 yard mini skein left over doing toes, heels, and cuffs. So I couldn't have done the whole cuff in that gray, and I knew that when I looked at the ball. So I worked these 2 at a time, magic loop, which I don't normally do, but I wanted to make sure that I did everything the same on each sock, and I only have so many 9-inch circulars. So yeah, it was not bad to knit them 2 at a time magic loop. It is it's a really easy way to do it and make sure that you're making things the same length. Since, you know, I was experimenting, this base is not my typical base, so it was more plump. I did probably 10 fewer rounds on the foot than I normally do because the base is so plump. But they fit really nicely. So the stitch gauge isn't too crazy different than my normal stitch gauge. Yeah, and I think they'll be harder wearing than like a merino, obviously, right? Everybody knows that. Okay, let me talk about how there was just a worker who walked by when I said, well, I guess I won't talk about that right now, and then I proceeded to talk about it anyway. Yeah, there was a park worker who just walked by and was, I don't know, spraying the plants, and now I'm really, really thrown off. I just had to get all of the the mini skein sock ramble out before I forgot. Oh, you know what else I finished? I finished the second hat sample. I don't think that I had that. Nope. That was a work in progress last week. I don't have that to show you because I didn't bring it to the park, but I will try to remember to show you next time. And if not, it will definitely be on Instagram at some point, and I'm hoping to release that pattern later this month, maybe. It depends on my test knitters. So yeah, that's that. The other thing that I've been doing is I've been reading a lot. I think in the past 10 days I've finished probably 6 books. All of them have been young adult, except for The Time Traveler's Wife. But yeah, I've just been reading a lot. So my knitting has been not terrible, but not great. And I don't have any whips to show you. So I guess I'm just rambling. I just missed you guys so much in the, 2 weeks since I last recorded or whatever it's been. But now that the kids are back in school, I should be able to get onto a regular recording schedule again. And let me know what you think about in the park. Is it too noisy? There's a fountain right over there, so it might be too noisy. There's birds talking, of course. There was some rain right by the phone, so I don't know how that was. So let me know what you think about recording outside. If you guys like it, then maybe I'll take other excursions and record in different locations outside. If you don't like it, then I will keep it confined to my room or my living room, because now I can record in my living room without children. It's very exciting. Okay, I rambled a lot. It was really great to hang out with you guys. I hope to see you next week, and I hope you made something fantastic with your sticks and string. Bye!